Hello, YouTube land. This is Brenton coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky, the Bluegrass State. Today, I have a very interesting guest. His name is Don Neal, and I want to let him give a bio on himself. And anyway, this guy's got some fascinating stories, and it's incredible the amount of information this guy has on the Bigfoot phenomenon. And maybe we'll touch on the Dogman stuff a little too. But anyway, I won't make you wait any longer. Let's go to our guest. Well, what's another like an unusual story you've collected anywhere? It doesn't have to be Kentucky.
Well, one story that was shared with me, I use this to tell on Halloween. I'm asked to speak sometimes at events near Halloween, and I'd always tell this story. There was, I believe this story happened in upper Minnesota or Wisconsin, but amazing story because of what the creature did. And we don't believe Bigfoots are mean creatures and they're not aggressive creatures, or we wouldn't have a chance. But we do believe that sometimes they do some interesting things. But there was a mother that was working in a restaurant as a waitress. She was a single mother. She had 3 children. I believe the young boy was about 5. The 2 other girls were like 6 and 10. So the mother has a cousin come over who's like 16, old enough to say, watch the kids. Now, I know that's young, but the mother's got to go to work. You know, she's poor. She's got to go to work. They live in a trailer outside of town in a wooded area. She says, watch the kids. I'm going to waitress. I'll be home late tonight. So as the kids are around in the home, they start hearing something hitting on the side of the house. They hear something hitting on the door. And so the kids start getting scared. This goes on for an hour or so. And one moment it's at the front door, and then one moment it's at the back door. And all they can see is a shadow that fills the door window, fills the kitchen window as it passes by. So these kids are getting traumatized. There's no phone. The poor mother doesn't have a phone. They can't call anybody. And so the older girl, the 16-year-old, says, y'all just stay with me, stay close. We're in the house. I believe the girl said she even got a butcher knife. You know, just like a cliche, a horror movie, she gets a butcher knife, you know, something for protection. And the kids are scared. So finally, after a while, they know that it's not coming in the house, or they feel comfortable. So they're looking out the kitchen window, and they see in the backyard behind a tree, they explained this very tall, taller than any man they'd ever seen, but a black figure that keeps peeking out from behind the tree. It leans back and then it peeks out, and they can see the glow of its eyes reflected from the kitchen light shining out the window. And so that's all it does. And they're looking, they get the older girl to look. When the little boy comes to the window, the creature makes a motion and does this with his hand, like, come here, come here. It wouldn't do it when the girls were there, but whenever the little boy would come to the window to get a look, the oldest girl, the 16-year-old, said it would motion for him, like, come here, come here. So when that scared them enough, they closed the blinds. And when the mother came home that night at 11 o'clock, they were hysterical, beside themselves. Wow. She had to call some relatives to come and get them. They left the home and they moved out of that trailer and never spent another night in that trailer. But that creature, for some reason, when it saw the little boy, was doing this come here motion. You know, something about the little boy. I mean, you can't explain why, but that's what happened according to those 4 witnesses.
Wow. But was the little boy the youngest?
Yeah, he was 5-year-old. He was the smallest of all the group that was there.
Yeah.
But the creature didn't make that motion until the little boy would come to the window.
Yeah.
And the older girl was telling that she was even watching, and then he'd come to the window, and this creature would begin this.
It seems like they like little children. They kind of are they almost want to interact or communicate with the little ones. Or
oh yeah, how many reports there are of them coming around children playing somewhere at a park, away from the campfire, or out in the forest, and the kids are playing. They look up and the Bigfoot's standing there, and the kids, sometimes, of course, they're kids. They don't, and they're standing there just looking, and it's drawn to children making noise. Children playing.
Yeah,
they're interested in that for some reason.
Yeah, I have a really, really controversial video where this little kid was crying and the mother was filming, trying to figure it out, and but people were really upset because the kid was crying and the mother was trying to. She didn't know what was out there, but you'll have to see. You'll have to look at that video, and you'll understand when you see it. But there was stuff in the footage of the thing spreading the trees, looking, and there was more than one thing too. There were several things in the video.
Wow.
But you mentioned something about the land between the lakes and a canine type creature. Can you tell a little bit about that?
Well, although that's not my line of study, when you live as close to land between the lakes as I do down here, you do hear stories. We get a lot of Bigfoot reports from land between the lakes, but you still get a lot of reports of what they call the dog man. Now, if you look online and look up the beast of LBL, down here that's abbreviated, we call land between the lakes the LBL area. And there are many stories about the beast of LBL. There's a great writer down here in our part of Kentucky that wrote a book about that. And they even did a TV show on the beast of LBL. But this creature is seen 7 or 8 foot tall. It's more slender in the legs, and it has a very elongated snout. It has long canine teeth and tall pointy ears, and it absolutely leaves the field of Bigfoot, I think, and it's an entirely different creature. I don't claim to know a lot about that, but the stories are amazing. And the author of this book, if I'm not mistaken, either he or some of his close family actually witnessed the creature and saw it when they were children and were playing and saw it up on a hillside looking at them, and it began to growl and bared its teeth. And one great story that you'll look up if you look up the beast of LBL is back before it became this, when they were planning on flooding the area. And there used to be towns there. They flooded entire little towns and churches. It's an interesting area. And they made all these rivers dammed up and made them Kentucky Lake and Barkley Lake. But when they were doing that, there's a great story that the police were called out to a camping ground area, a cabin. And when they got there, the family was missing. And I'm going by memory here, but it's a great story to read. You should read it. You absolutely should find the story. And there's a woman author who wrote the story from 2 police officers who were on scene. And they came to her store about 2 o'clock in the morning, and they came in looking pale-faced as a ghost, and they got something that snack on, and they were just sitting outside in shock. And she walks out. Of course, it's early in the morning. There's not much going on. And she's asking them what happened. And they broke down and told her that when they began to search the trailer, and I'm going to abbreviate this quickly, but they found the father and the mother torn to shreds. They were ripped open. They were limbs pulled off. They were just absolutely demolished like a wild animal. I believe maybe even a little boy, I think, was in the story. They were all tore up, but the little girl could not be found. So they looked around the area, and out back of the cabin, they found the girl way up in a tree. And she was just absolutely torn to shreds and mutilated. And there were claw marks and teeth marks of some type of a canine-like creature, but they were huge. The claw marks were, it wasn't a paw of an animal. It was large. And so these police officers were like to the place of throwing up. They were sick at what they just saw. And it was hushed because they were flooding this area to make it a great tourist attraction. It was a billions and billions of dollar business venture, and they didn't want stories like that getting out. And the woman author wrote that and put it in a book, and it's a very interesting read. And then she begins to explain more about that. But that creature apparently killed an entire family, and it was covered over so that the land between the lakes area could be constructed and be what it is today.
Wow. Yeah, see, the dog man's a whole different ball game, it seems to me. Mm-hmm. Now we talked a little bit about some cases where the people kind of get growled at, or there seems to be some kind of effect that when they run across a Bigfoot or something that seems to be able to kind of use maybe an infrasound type thing.
Yes,
or at least it appears that way. Do you know of any stories that you can tell that where people have encountered it and had effects from infrasound type things?
Yes, many stories. In 2008, I was with the BFRO, the ones that have the TV show now called Finding Bigfoot. That's the BFRO. And we were at Standing Stone State Park down in Tennessee. It's right at the Kentucky-Tennessee border. One of the first expeditions I had ever been on with the KBRO. And one of their researchers is named Ron Bowles. And he's a very big, strapping guy. He's a man's man. He's a big fella. And he was leading us on, I think, the second night of the expedition. And we went down to by a lake to a certain area. And what I said about Ron Bowles, I mean, he's not a guy to play around. He's certainly not going to act sissified. The guy was all man. And, when we got near the area, he got blasted, best as I can remember. It made him weak. It made him a little bit sick. It seemed like I remember we kind of retreated from the whole group retreated from that area, and he didn't feel it safe for us to go any further into that area. That was my first actual being there experience with somebody who was call blasted or sound blasted. I know one story I can't share much with, but there was a young lady. The story is that she was on an expedition and got call blasted. She got so sick that she got sick and had to be put into the hospital. And this is very hush. Not much is said, so I got to watch what I say. But I will tell you this, whether it's related or not long after that, she passed away. Now, you know, everybody wants to be so careful not to relate that because we don't believe Bigfoot are aggressive or mean creatures by nature, but sometimes they do aggressive things. I have a friend who is now in Eastern Kentucky. His name is John Straney, and he's a great man and a great Bigfoot researcher. And he's a pretty big man. Now, he's a big fella. And John was with a female researcher, and they were going to a known location of a known Bigfoot researcher that I heard you mention. I don't want to say his name, but you've had him on your shows, you said. And they went to his area where he has filmed a Bigfoot before. And as they were going towards the woods, John gets call blasted. He gets this reverberation. It's low enough you can't hear it, but he can feel it in his chest. And it took his knees out from under him. I'm talking about a big man. And he got sick. All of a sudden, he was dizzy. He had no orientation of which direction he was going. He did not know anything. He was literally sick. The lady was doing what she could to help pull him back. And what's odd with John, when they'd get a certain distance away, he'd feel better. And he stood up and recuperated and shook it off. And he said, well, look, we're here to research. We've drove a long way. Let's go again. And the way I understand it, as he headed back to the woods, it hit him a second time. So it wasn't a one-time sickness thing. And down he went. And they had to eventually leave the area. And he became very sick, very weak as a puppy, and absolutely disoriented. And he tells me, Don, I was call blasted. I was struck with infrasound, and it took everything out of me. I could not operate. I could not do anything.
Yeah, that's quite incredible. Yeah. I mean, I've collected a bunch of stories, and I've been trying to link that kind of information together on what kind of different things. Sometimes people feel like they even get like put in a hypnosis state, or
yes,
like that one story I was telling you, that the guy got hit and he started taking his clothes off and folding them.
Isn't that amazing?
That is incredible.
Wow.
And I know when I had Scott Carpenter on, he got hit with infrasound. He said it felt like electricity went through him. And then the next day, he had blood in his urine, and the guy that was with him, that was maybe 5-6 feet from him, he didn't feel like the electricity thing, but he had blood in his urine too. So
wow.
it was just he was near it. So it seems like they can almost project it into a specific spot. I've even heard cases where someone was in the tent and someone standing a couple feet from it, and that one person was targeted, and the person next to it wasn't. And he said, he was like, "Did you feel that?" And in that one case with Kurt Stokes up in northern Kentucky, he said it felt like it boiled his insides, and he believes he still has health problems today from it. And but that was a dog man that hit him.
I can confirm on one point you just made. Charlie Raymond, I keep mentioning his name. He's the head of the KBRO, the Kentucky Bigfoot Research Organization. And he has some film that is very fantastic film. They were with a group of, I believe, BFRO investigators and KBRO investigators on a joint venture. And they're walking down a trail. It's a group of, and I'm guessing now, 5 or 6 men, 5 and 6 women. And, but one lady in the group got struck with infrasound, and she said, I've got to stop. And she became deathly sick and very afraid. She had that, what we call fight or flight mode hit her. And she said, we've got to leave now. And it only struck her in the midst of that entire group of people, and they had to assist her out. But Charlie, or someone in the group, had a thermal camera, a FLIR thermal, and began to scan the woods. And we have great video on the KBRO website of 2 creatures. I believe it's 2 in there, and they're belly crawling. They're down here not far, 30 yards off the trail, down in a little lower section, and these things are belly crawling like people do in the army when they're down there crawling, don't know they're being picked up on a thermal camera, and they're crawling away from this group of people. And that's what it looks like when you look at the video. It looks like something, a human form, is belly crawling away from these people. When it gets so far, it jumps up, and you can see just bits and pieces, never a full body shot. But that proves you could pick one person out of that group. She's the only one, and she was surrounded by other people. So now that's even more amazing, how that could be pinpointed to one person.
Yeah, like almost a microphone. You have unidirectional, omni, and corduroid.
Right.
You know, interesting for sure.
I've heard of people being call blasted, losing track of time.
Yeah.
They lose track of how long they were there or how long until they come back out of the woods.
Yeah. I know a couple guys that they were blasted, and they went all the way home and didn't talk about it at all. And then when they got 45 minutes into their trip going home, they both came to and said, "Do you remember what just happened?" And you know, it was quite incredible.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah,
Isn't that awesome?
No wonder they can stay hidden. If they can hit you with something like that, make you forget, and you leave, and you know, and remember.
And it's not unheard of in the animal kingdom, as you and I talked earlier today. You know, lions can give a roar that freezes their prey in their tracks, and they stand still. There's been scientific studies that cats, like they try to mesmerize a bird, they have something they can do that they can walk up on that bird and grab it. It's I won't say it hypnotizes, but that it makes that bird unaware or unable to move. And as I told you today, whales, it has been proven that whales can send sound out. We know dolphins can, but whales can send a shock wave out that shocks their prey and causes it to be immobile while they catch the prey. But they can make lower sounds, lower than the human spectrum, that can travel in the oceans over 800 miles, and other whales pick up on that, and they can find each other. So, you know, the animal kingdom gives us proof that there is such a thing as sound, inaudible sound that has effect on other creatures.
Yeah, quite incredible, for sure. Now, you, I guess, doing this over time, you've kind of wondered, I guess, what they are and things like that. So. What kind of theory do you tend to lean to? Maybe some type of human hybrid type, maybe, or if you were to guess, do you feel like they are totally ape or something more than that, or what kind of, where do you lean at as of now?
The best way I can answer you is to be, of course, as a Christian and minister, I should be, to be completely and totally honest. I wouldn't make the mistake so that I can impress somebody that I know something and tell a lie. And the truth is this: when I got into this research, my very first thought is that this was an as yet undiscovered North American bipedal ape, maybe a descendant of Gigantopithecus. That was what I was leaning towards, and went into it with that theory in mind. I was not into it very long and began to do serious investigating, talking to witnesses, finding out what I could. And I can tell you one thing I ruled out. The ape connection is absolutely out of my mind. It is not some type of ape. The human-like features, the human-like actions, the interactions with people, the looks on its face of amazement or curiosity, the creature that waved its hand to mimic the sounds, I have left it being ape far behind. Now, I have not come to a conclusion yet. I know all the connections people talk about: alien connected, interdimensional, from another realm, time traveler. I've heard of descendants of Cain, descendants of Esau, who was a hairy man, the Nephilim connection with the antediluvian age. All of that is interesting to me, of course, being a minister, and I believe in the Bible. But to be honest with you, at this moment, the more I search, the more I realize I don't know. The more I look for answers, the more questions I come up with. And I just do not know yet where I put it, but it is more human than it is ape. Yeah. It has a body of an animal that looks like an animal, but its facial features and its characteristics is that of a very, I get lost with people here, it's very super intelligent in what it knows. It may not can pick up a phone. It's not technologically smart. But I believe in the woods you can have the greatest Navy SEAL, Army Ranger, the greatest Green Beret, the greatest survivalist cannot go in the woods and do what these creatures do daily, just trying to live and survive. They are absolutely the masters of where they're at, and they are skilled and have skills we can't even comprehend, and they have learned to survive since the American Indians and before. I believe they've been here long before we ever came, and their only way of living and surviving is to stay unknown to us and stay hidden. I believe they're seen more than they mean to. I believe it's accident. Human population is growing. We're encroaching upon the woodlands. You know, there's people now everywhere. And so we're beginning to get more sightings. The sightings have increased the last 10 years. Every year, the sightings are increasing more and more. There's more Bigfoot groups out looking for them than ever before. Since the TV show started and all the Finding Bigfoots and people are out, there's more researchers than ever before. And so we're having more sightings. But to finish answering your question, I'm just not sure. But it's more human-like than animal-like. And from there, I don't know. I'm interested to find out. I want to know.
Yeah. Well, that's good that you just say you don't know, and you left the ape part behind, but you don't know. Now I've thrown my ideas out there, but I'm like you. I say that I don't know for sure, but I do throw out ideas and comparisons with like infrasound compared to the abilities that angelic beings had with smiting with blindness or madness, or there was lots of different things angels smote people with. It wasn't just blindness. I mean, in the Sodom and Gomorrah story, they smote the men with blindness that they wearied themselves to find the door. They didn't actually stop trying to find the door, but they was wearied. They were wearying themselves to do it. With the Elijah and his servants, the chariots came down, smote the entire Syrian army, and they said, Elisha came out and said, the man you're looking for is here, follow me. And he took them there and then prayed God opened their eyes. And once their eyes were open, they realized they had just been abducted. Entire army. Right. So, it's so some of the capabilities and what have you seem similar. And then the whole, if I was to categorize them into the supernatural realm, I talked to you a bit earlier about the scriptures that says that supernatural celestial beings have flesh,
right?
But the glory is different. Whatever the glory is where the glory is different. Then that is the extra abilities maybe that they have. But that's just a guess. I'm theorizing. And,
exactly.
It's
good to do. I think we've got to keep an open mind. Somebody may say, Brother Don, as a minister, how can you believe in those things? Well, if I'm going to believe in Bigfoot, why would I close the door there? I've got to keep an open mind. There's some things I don't want to approach, but you have to approach. I've heard people talk about them cloaking, the ability to disappear, the ability to mind speak. Now, I don't dwell on that a lot, but I won't tell you that I close that out, because then I've closed my mind. And when you close your mind, you're not going to learn anything. But I can tell you one experience I did have on one of my Bigfoot expeditions that I still today, I ponder on it and I'm stumped. And it may not be that weird to some, but let me share it with you if I may. I was in a known area of a Bigfoot sightings, habitualization. They were living on this property and staying on this property, and I was given permission to come and look. They love peanut butter. Anything sweet. I told you the pancake eating video that I saw. They love anything sweet. Many researchers, Green, who's the Green man, that he's got the video of the Bigfoot that comes and takes the candy bar off the stump. It's a night vision, thermal vision video, and that's real popular. But anyway, I took a 36-ounce jar of peanut butter, and I go to these woods by a little pond where it's known to be drinking from, they say, and I take a duct tape, and I duct tape it around the tree several times. It's on that tree because I don't want a raccoon to remove it. I don't want a deer to knock it off. When I get done with this 36-ounce jar of peanut butter and the top's off, you can't budge it off that tree. And I've got a Walmart trail camera. I go few feet away and pointed at that peanut butter jar. And this is the old camera with the flash bulb. So when you walk in front of it, it senses up there and it flashes the bulb. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's for nighttime pictures. Daytime, it just flashes. So I leave it there for a week. I go back and the peanut butter jar, immediately I see it's gone. The duct tape is gone. My wife and I look around a 100-foot area. We look to find the empty jar or pieces of duct tape. They're not there. The camera has over 400 pictures. So I think I've got something that took this peanut butter. I go home and download all the pictures. I've got deer, I've got raccoon, I've got squirrels, I've got a turkey flock comes by. Not all of them interested in the peanut butter. But here's what happens. On the 6 o'clock that evening, it takes a picture of a deer standing there looking at the peanut butter jar.
Right.
And at 6 o'clock the next morning, the peanut butter jar is gone. Now, it shows 2 pictures snapped at nighttime. But when I bring the pictures up on computer, they're totally black screen. So what that means is the flash bulb didn't flash. So I thought, okay, my flash bulb went out. Doggone, nothing strange, nothing unusual. My flash bulb quit working. So I order another little bulb. It's a little bitty bulb, like a little small piece of rice. And so I put the camera up right here in the office where you're seeing me sit right now. I put it right here on my desk. 3 days later, I picked up the camera. I'm going to open the front and get this bulb out and order a new bulb. And the camera flashes in my face. So I begin to test it, and guess what? The flash bulb works perfectly. That camera sat in the woods for a week. It took over 400 pictures of everything that eat that peanut butter out of that jar, except for the night it was removed. It took 2 pictures, but the flash bulb refused to work. So that's pretty odd in itself. So I get a friend that has over $500 trail camera. It's one of those infrared trail cameras. And it doesn't flash above. It's the most modern, greatest kind you can get. And I go back to the woods. This camera's so expensive, believe me, I chain it to the tree. I take another 36-ounce jar of peanut butter, and I take some ratchet tie-down straps, and I ratchet it onto this tree so much, I get it so tight that peanut butter starts coming out of the top of the jar. And I'm thinking, you won't take this. And I leave the camera there for 7 days. Now, here's where it gets crazy. I go back to get that camera, the peanut butter is gone, and the ratchet straps are laying at the foot of the tree. My wife and I searched the whole area for the peanut butter jar. Look, if a deer or raccoon eats it, fine, but the jar is still there. The jar is gone. The camera has 400 or 500 pictures. The picture snaps one evening at 7:10 p.m., and there's a deer chewing on the peanut butter and a squirrel right above it in the tree. And at 5 o'clock the next morning, it snaps a second picture, and the peanut butter jar is gone. That $500 camera, again, did not snap any picture of anything taking that peanut butter jar off that tree from around those ratchet straps. 2 incidents in about a 12-day period.
Wow. Huh. Yeah, that happens a lot. That actually there'll be, I've seen some where the apple's there, and there's a picture with timestamp, and then another picture, the apple's gone, and they're real, within a minute or so, and it's like, well, what happened? It just there and boom, it's gone. That is a mystery. That's unexplainable. I mean, what can you say?
I mean, one camera is coincidence. 2 cameras, something's going on. And the one camera, the flash bulb refused to work. Over 400 pictures, it only refused to work on 2 pictures that was snapped at the time something was taking the peanut butter jar from the tree. Then the second camera, one of the most advanced cameras, it didn't have a flash bulb to go out. It snapped perfect HD, high-definition pictures. It gets over 500 pictures, except for 2 clicks the night the peanut butter jar is taken. Then I start scratching my head going, something's funny here. It captured any human. It would have captured any animal. Why did it not capture? And it didn't just walk up and take the peanut butter off of those tie-down straps. It had to work at it, I guarantee.
Yeah. Well,
so I don't know.
Wonder if they could maybe put their thumb over the flash. If they'd been seeing that thing flashing in the woods, maybe they went around there and put their finger on it.
Again, that shows some kind of intelligence. It shows, and that brings us, you just keep getting, the more we talk, the more questions. I have researchers that say that when they go in the woods and take their guns or cameras or their equipment, they're going looking, but they've noticed that they'll have more experiences when they're unarmed or when they don't have a camera.
Yeah.
So I don't know how does a Bigfoot know what a camera is? I don't see how, but I'll tell you what, we put out thousands and thousands of trail cameras, and they work around them. They stay away from them, and I hear those theories of some scientists believe they can smell the plastic of the cameras it's made. Some say they can hear so good they can hear all these cameras what's the word that makes a whirring noise. They're operating. It has a little mechanics inside. Some people believe they can see that a little beam of light that comes out. There's an infrared light that trips a tripping mechanism, and they say that maybe they can see that, but they're great about staying out in front of those cameras. So they have some kind of intelligence to stay away from weapons and to stay away from cameras, it seems like.
And to be able to beat the cameras, that's the amazing part. Even if they knew what a camera was, they was able to get that peanut butter without you catching them.
Exactly.
And, that's
not some dumb ape. That's not a chimpanzee.
No. So that's amazing for sure. Now, have you? You said that you had to experience that time with your wife where she didn't believe in Bigfoot at all, and then you went out and you knocked on some trees.
Yes. That's what made my wife become a Bigfoot believer. My wife didn't like me going out. Sometimes, like I told you, a lot of researchers can plan when they're going to go, and they'll plan a week or two ahead of time. And I literally, in my life as a minister, and I'm not complaining, I love doing it, 43 years, I better love it, but I don't punch a time clock, and I don't have a set time. And I may be tonight at midnight, I may be at the hospital, I may be, in the morning that somebody's sick or dying. So you got to be on call. So I never know when I'm going to be free. And so some evening I may work all day and come in that evening, and the wife says, you have no appointments, nobody's called, and nobody's in the hospital. And I find out literally at 5 o'clock that I can go out at 6 o'clock that evening and go squatching. So many times I load up and go by myself. And I've been many times, I do carry a weapon. I've been trained in weapons use, and I'm a concealed carry. But I do go in the woods by myself, out here in these woods, get out into the deep woods by myself. I won't say I'm that brave. I'm just that crazy. But my wife doesn't like that. And I try to get people to go when I can. Sometimes my brother. Anyway, so some occasions, though she is a non-believer at the time, she would go with me because she said, I think you're crazy going out there by yourself, so I'll go with you. So this particular night, she goes with me. So I know I'm not going to go in the woods with my wife. She sits in the truck. And I say, honey, I'm going to walk down this little gravel road. Again, I go to known areas of Bigfoot sightings or where there's been incidents. Even if it's been years past, I try to go where I know there's been one at one time or another or sightings of one. And I took her to Muhlenberg County, Kentucky. It's another county next to me. And again, you hear me talk about this a lot, stripper pits. I'm in a strip mines area that's been abandoned since the 60s. And so she sits in the truck, and, she thinks I'm a lunatic. And she's sitting there, and I don't know, it seemed like she may have been filing her nails. And I walk about 50 feet from the car, and I've got a Louisville Slugger Bigfoot bat they had made for me. It says Don Neal Bigfoot Researcher. So I get to this tree. I wait about 10 minutes, and I do my 3 knocks. And immediately, much to my happiness, way off, I do knock, 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 and I get this pow, real loud. You could tell it was big knock from way off. I'm looking in the dark towards my truck. I can't see nothing but the silhouette, and I'm thinking, oh, I wish my wife could have heard that. I wish she had the window down. And so I wait about 5 minutes, and I knock again 3 times, and this time it's closer. Pow! It sounded like a telephone pole hitting a tree. I mean, it's big. So I can't stand it. I've got to go my wife's got to roll the window down and hear this. So I come back to the truck, and as I get close enough to the truck, I can begin to see she had the window down, and she's sitting there, and her eyes is big around as silver dollars. And she says, do you hear that? And I said, yes, I hear that. I want you to hear that. And she said, nothing can do that. Nothing can knock on wood like that. No creature, no bear, no rack. Nothing can hit a wood like that. And I'm standing by the truck, and I find a little tree, and I hit the tree, and this time not 50 yards into the wood. This thing sounds like he's swinging a fence post, and he goes crack over this tree. And my wife and I are staring, looking at each other, and I said, don't say nothing, don't move. And we sat there another hour, and nothing else happens. I believe it got close enough to realize, we were there, humans were there, not what it thought it was. But it came answering my tree knocks, which they do a lot. That's their form of communication. we believe they're location locks. But when we came home that night, what I didn't know is my wife said, look, if I would have heard a scream or a howl or a whistle or anything, I would have probably attributed it to some type of animal. I wouldn't have been convinced. But something knocking on wood that loud, there's nothing I know can do that. Nothing can do that. And that's what made my wife become a believer today. She goes with me many times now and helps me look for. She's helped me find tracks and hair. So she's very interested now in Bigfoot.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that you got some fascinating stories. I really would like to have you come back and we could talk about some some other type deeper type issues and some things. I'll come up with a list of questions and stuff if you would.
Sure, be glad to.
I think it's been like an hour and a half, something like that.
Has it?
Yeah.
That long already? Wow.
I know. I mean, time flies. That's what I was saying. So I think we'll wrap it up this time, but I'll shoot you email if you would come back on and share some more and pull together some stories. I love the stories, and one of the things I really liked that you said on one of the shows was that it's the stories that convince you, because I've been saying that. I don't care if I never see a picture, and I have seen pictures, but it's not the footage or the tracks or anything like that. It's the stories that people tell. If witnesses can testify in court and it's submissible, then I don't know why evidence of people telling what they saw isn't good for some. So.
Exactly. And one thing I'd like to say, and it will segue from this program into the next one, will be this. If there's not such a thing as a Bigfoot, if there's not, somebody says there's not such a thing, okay, I'll accept that. Then tell me why in every state in the United States, with the exception of Hawaii, in 98 of the 120 counties here in the state of Kentucky, from the richest to the poorest people, from the most educated to the illiterate, to professional people to trained Army observers, everybody is hallucinating and seeing a 7-foot-tall, hair-covered creature. They're having a mass hallucination of the same thing. Some scientist needs to look into that because it's the greatest phenomenon that's ever hit planet Earth. I mean, if there's no Bigfoot, then all these people are seeing the same creature. That's awesome. The odds are unbelievable. Let's look into that. That's amazing.
Yeah, I agree. That's there's just no way. There's something going.
There's no way. It's impossible.
It's unbelievable that I know why and this is some of the stuff we could talk about. You could bring some stories and we'll talk about this, but I really believe one of the reasons that it's suppressed is because it might blow out of the water this evolution theory, the theory of evolution, because these things would, I think, tend to, I think there's people that know that there would open up the door for some of the biblical narrative of the Nephilim and things like that with this human type DNA and what have you. So I believe that it's suppressed for that, because it has to be a descendant of the Gigantopithecus for the evolutionary aspect to hold. And I believe that there's some people in the know that that's not the case, and they don't want the golden goose,
right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
That's
well, I've enjoyed this. I have enjoyed this. Thank you so much for this time.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm telling you what, I enjoyed it too. And if you would, and I really mean this too, because the fans are going to be asking for you to come back. If you would gather up some stories, and you can come back and tell the stories. That's my favorite thing. I'm telling you that every subscriber I have love to hear the stories, and I know that you have all kinds of stories that you can pull together. And I have some stories too. I'll even bring a few of the stories that I have filed away that are very, very interesting. I have a couple that I kind of wanted to tell about, but I want to keep this episode not much longer, or I'll have to break it in half because there's a certain gigabyte amount for an upload. But thank you very much, Don, and I'll maybe next week you can come back if you would.
We'll see what my schedule looks like. I'd be glad to.
Okay.